is now 6 p.m. and I will call the City Council work session meeting to order. And at this point, I'll call on the Honorable Judge Arnold Poole to do a presentation on the municipal court.
Hi, everybody. I'll start by apologizing right away because at the end of the day, my allergies and the pollen kind of caught up on me, so I got my cough drops, I got my water, I've taken my over-the-counter drug, so I'm ready to start. So.
Do you need another water?
No, I think 3 will work. So let me tell you about what we got. No, I don't need that. Well, I might by the end of the night.
You might cry.
So Chapter 5, Section 23 of the McMinnville City Charter from 1971 lays out what the judge and what the municipal court does. And I wrote them out for you. I'm not going to insult you by just reading it, but a couple of the highlights. And if you look at number 2, and that is the court, actually they said the judge, but I think they meant the court, has original and exclusive jurisdiction for all actions brought to recover or enforce forfeitures of penalties. And then the last one goes on to say that when not governed by ordinances or this charter, all proceedings for the violations of city ordinances shall be governed by the applicable general laws of the state governing justices of the Peace and Justice Court. So what that means is we have a full-service court. We can do anything that's not exclusively reserved for the circuit court. We don't do anything for juveniles. There's no felonies, no probate, no divorce, no child custody, no lawsuits, but we do just about everything else. Everybody knows we do traffic violations. We do criminal misdemeanors. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is we're in a county seat. And when somebody commits a felony in Willamina or Sheridan or the Trappist Abbey, they're brought to McMinnville. And if they don't, or if they're not sent to prison or they're just put on probation, they serve a time in the county jail. When they're released on the 6th Street here in McMinnville. And sometimes those folks aren't as nice as what we really want to have be here. The other thing, it seems like, and I've been in this business for 3 decades now, and it seems like every so often the DA's office, when in any particular county, they'll say, hey, we're getting short on our budget, we need to cut back. If they do cut back, guess where the police are going to be citing people? They're not going to cite them in the circuit court. They're going to cite them in here. We also do code enforcement. So keeping of junk, I'm signing warrants like every week to authorizing city employees to go onto private property to clean up yards and things. Warrants for vector control, parking tickets. I do tow hearings. And what's kind of unique for our court, we do, I'm kind of the probation officer for the misdemeanors out of this court, and I think that's unique for us. The crimes and the traffic stuff is appealable to circuit court. The code enforcement, you guys might know, it's appealable to the city council. Where we were, I've been doing this now for 14 months. You swore me in May. I think I started the next day. Back then, we were left over from COVID and we were doing video-only court. My impression as the new guy coming around is that offenders were not taking us seriously. I can't tell you how many times I've had to say, please take your hat off, you're in court. Please put a shirt on, you're in court. Anecdotally, I should tell you probably our failure to appear rate, and a failure to appear is a crime in and of itself. We choose not to charge people with the new crime of failure to appear, but it is a crime. And our rate was about 80% back then. I remember before you swore me in, I observed one session, and I remember Judge Terry Marr remarked, I was watching on video, and he's like, okay, we had 76 people scheduled today for arraignments. 9 appeared. It was unbelievable. So that's where we were. let me tell you about what we've done and where we are. First of all, we've either reestablished or we've established relationships within the community. And I think that's really critical for a community court. And I'll explain as we go along, but we've adopted a philosophy of improvise, adapt, and overcome the problems that we have. The very first thing we did is rescinded the COVID video-only order. And folks are pretty well required to do personal appearances. The reason for that is, and to paraphrase a criminal client of mine in Lynn County, is that you don't get cited to court for being good. There's a process, and you need to go and you need to explain yourself, or you need to go through the whole process. I can tell you now, again, anecdotally, the failure to appear rates are down to about 20%. And there's a reason why I don't have exact statistics on that, and I'll talk about that later. We've developed a new community service system. We have a number of approved organizations. You wouldn't believe the number of folks who wanted to do some work for their brother-in-law, Al, and then say, oh yeah, this is what I did. It's a nonprofit organization. We actually had one guy say that, well, I play in the church band, that should count. It doesn't. So we have approved organizations, and we actually give them a piece of paper. Here are the organizations. These are the ones that we approve. And then on the back, there's a form where they can fill out their orders, and then the people that they're working for can actually sign off on it. And that has been working a lot better for us. It's verifiable, and we know for sure that things are being done. The other thing in on the packet, the next I put down there is work crew, and I put an exclamation mark. That is not a typo. We are so excited. And that's a reestablishment of something that we've had from years and years ago. And we went over and we talked to the folks in Yamhill County Parole and Probation, and they supervise people doing, just like it says, work for, mostly for the county parks, the fairgrounds, and if anybody wants to contract with the county, they'll be more than happy to provide work for them. And I think one of the, I want to say Newburgh contracted with them. The other thing we've done is jail. Let me talk about jail a little bit. During when I was walking around town introducing myself to folks, I had a chance to talk with them. Well, it was Sergeant Lux back then. He was a sergeant in the jail, and he gave me a tour. And he let me know that during COVID, they lost 50% of their deputies that are managing the jail. They also lost their ability to manage people within the jail as well. We developed a new system with them. The reason why we did is they had this crazy system. All of the county sheriffs, I think throughout the state, have this video system. They call it Polycom. We have a Polycom recorder over there. And then one of our clerks would set a laptop in front of the Polycom recorder, and that would link to the GoToMeeting thing that we were doing. It was just silly. So, at least in my mind. And so one of the times when we were doing that, I just walked over there and sat down in front of the monitor, and I think they had like 6 people, and instead of just continuing their cases, we actually closed some out. We kind of got in trouble with the sheriff, and the jail commander at the time closed out all municipal courts. It ended up working out better because we ended up sitting down with at this point, the new jail commander. Remember I mentioned that Sergeant Lutz. Now he's Captain Lutz, and he's in charge of the jail. And our own Captain Fessler from the police department and our court staff, Jason and I, we sat down with them and said, what can we do? We're willing to do anything that you want. And it ended up we're bouncing ideas around, and finally I said, look at, Yamhill County's got one of the best defense lawyer visiting areas of all of the jails in the state. How about if we just go over there and take over one of the rooms? And they went, sure, fine. So now the best time for that is at 3 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, which that's normally one of our busiest times. But we go over there, and me, a prosecutor, or the prosecutor, and a clerk, and we arraign people right then and there. The prosecutor will give them essentially her walk-in offer. If they don't want to do the walk-in offer, that's okay. We can get them a lawyer, and we've done that on several occasions. But at that point, I'll make a decision whether they're going to be released or whether they're going to be held. A problem that we had before was we'd issue warrants, and then people would be picked up, they'd be taken to jail, they'd be released and given a court date. And they wouldn't show up, and we go through this process over and over. One problem is that by state law, the sheriff is required to release people if they're not seen by a magistrate within 36 hours of the time that they go into jail. So one of the workarounds we did is I'm allowed by statute to deputize court clerks and a prosecutor, and that's what I did. So now when folks come into the jail, Jason or Suzanda or our prosecutor goes over there, hi, how you doing? You're now arraigned, and it goes through the reading of the rights and whatnot. They're supposed to hold him until I get to see him, I'm pretty sure. He's nodding his head, yeah, so that's good. And then that's when the prosecutor and I go over there. The general rule is, and I'm going to have to take a sip, I'm so sorry. But someone who's held in jail, they're entitled to have a trial within 60 days of the date of their arrest. There's another statute that says that if they're serving a sentence within the Department of Corrections prison, they're entitled to have a trial within 90 days if they ask for it. And we have some holdover DUIs that people have. They realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a hold. I need to get rid of this somehow. So we do all of that, and it's been working out really well. It's been working out so well. One of the first times we went over there, one of the defendants looked to the prosecutor and says, I had no idea you could get in trouble for not going to court. I thought you could miss court 50, 60 times without getting into any trouble. To her credit, she kind of looked at him and says, that was then. The other thing that, in regarding the jail that we did, and as early as December I did this, and that is I deputized quite a few of the ranking police officers, lieutenants and captains over at the police department to act as release officers for this court. That same order appointing those folks to be release officers, I also put on there that if the defendant has 3 or more failure to appears, they're to be held. I don't know how well that worked. We ended up developing a kind of a code between us and the police department where we put on some extra digits in the bail amount that folks are supposed to pay, and that tells them, okay, this is a person that we're supposed to hold. And then I went and I bought this big old stamp from Amazon with red lettering that I can put right on top of the warrant that says, this is this defendant's, and then there's a blank, warrants in this case. And then the clerks can just fill it out, 7, 25, you know, whatever. So we have all of that stuff. Our FTAs have just gone way down, like I said. Another thing that has been a benefit for us, and this is post-COVID, and that is Provoking Hope. If you're not familiar, they're a wonderful organization. They're kind of related to the Oregon, I think they get payments from the Oregon medical plan. It's an addiction and recovery service. They do peer counseling, And they also act as a kind of a resource area where they point people in the direction of, for housing, for state and county services. And having someone from Provoking Hope come here in court and sit here, and then when somebody says, well, I don't know, and I can say, see that guy in the back who's waving his hand? That's so-and-so from Provoking Hope. He's there right now. Talk to him before you leave this courtroom. That's been wonderful. The other thing is we've developed a relationship with the folks at Mental Health. And the result of that is on our criminal days, we have a representative from Yamhill County Mental Health sitting here in the courtroom, and it's been wonderful. She's been able to kind of key us in on folks that we didn't necessarily realize had mental health problems. There was one young man who was trying to live out here in the area out here, and he had a citation to appear. I just brought him in, you know, just get it over with, and she came up and she told the prosecutor, he's one of our patients, and he's been in court a number of times, and he's never been found able to aid and assist in his own defense. It saved us money. It saved us time, and we were able to kind of push him towards over towards mental health. So that's been wonderful. We developed a bench parole program. Parole is when the sentencing judge allows somebody to be released under certain conditions. We've all heard of people being paroled from prison, that you have your parole officer and whatnot. And so I did that with one of the people who has been involved in our system for a long time. And we gave her a choice. You can sit there in jail, or you can start treating with mental health. And she was amenable to that. I gave her some things that she had to do. She had to follow recommendations for mental health. That included taking medications. That included doing alcohol and drug treatment. That included exploring housing other than the doorway to the judge's office, to stay out of the exclusion zone. No new crimes. It worked for a couple of weeks. She got caught in the exclusion zone. She's back in jail. I went and I saw her last week. I told her, I said, look, you have ups and downs. We're willing to start it again. You just let us know. So it's an ongoing thing. It just has to be, you know. And but we've also had failures. We had a guy, a couple of months ago. He was picked up. He had 37 cases with us. Prohibited camping, criminal trespass, stuff like that. We saw him. He was obviously delusional. He was not tracking at all. I assigned a lawyer to represent him. The lawyer went and saw him, and it was like, he says he's got a special pass that doesn't, that means he can't be in trouble in municipal court. Well, he doesn't, you know. We kind of stretch the rules. For instance, in circuit court, when a person is the lawyer thinks that their client is unable to aid and assist, they can file something to have that person evaluated either by a private psychologist at state expense, or they can be sent to the state hospital for evaluation for what's called restorative services, or they can be referred to the county mental health department for restorative services. So we're looking at the statute and it's like, well, there's nothing that says that it has to be in circuit court. So I called up the folks at mental health and talked to them, and they're like, yeah, sure, we'll give it a try. Well, they went and they tried, and the guy wouldn't do it. He wouldn't participate with them. And then we're stuck at that point. To have someone sent to the state hospital, it's got, right now under the current law, it's got to be a felony or above. And so that's a failure. We had to release him. I kept him for 60 days, and then We just had to release them. So this is something we're going to work on. I don't know if there's even an answer to it, but we're trying. I talked earlier about the judge being the probation officer. It's a wonderful program. I wish more courts did this. People are kept responsible. We have them come in, somebody will get sentenced and we'll say, hey, we want you to come back in 3 or 4 months. We'll want to see if you're doing what we told you to do. And if they're not, there's an immediate consequence. Last week I had a guy that he had made a deal with the city prosecutor to do 1 day of work crew and pay a $100 fine. And he came in and said, oh, I lost my referral. Can you give me another one? I only need 2 more weeks. And I'm looking at it going, he had a month. All he had to do was go next door and get a new referral. So we helped him out. He doesn't have to do work crew anymore. I gave him 2 days jail. So, but word's gotten out that we mean business around here. And that's had, and actually, I've actually had 3 people taken to jail directly from this court. It was sad. It was folks that had been convicted of a DUI from 2 or more years before, and they hadn't even done the very simplest thing of getting evaluated, which is something that you should be doing within the first, couple of months. And at a certain point, we're wasting money. So revoked, had them hauled away, and our standard is if you don't do anything, you get revoked, you get 15 days jail. Word has gotten out very quickly. I think the clerks have had a lot to do with it. And what we're finding is people are more serious about taking care of their DUI stuff. We had our first jury trial, I'm told, in over 3 years. We reached the point where we have to set 3 or 4 trials for the same day. And I'll get into that, but it starts with we have to mail out about 1,000 notices in hopes that we're going to get enough responses that we can have maybe 20 people show up for their jury duty, that we can then whittle down to the 6 that we need to have a trial for. Excuse me, I put a cough drop in the back of my throat, and it kind of I might need to take some more water here in a second. But in December, we tried to have a jury trial, and I tried to be really nice and limited it to just 1. I know from my own experience, I hate it when judges tell me that I should show up expecting to go to trial, and then it doesn't happen. And so I said, I'm not going to do that. And then the day before, we got word that the defense lawyer got ill, and we couldn't do it. So we lost the trial day. So the next trial day session I had 3 trials scheduled. All right, we're going to go for sure. Sure enough, the day before, I had lawyers calling me as I'm holding court in Lincoln City saying, hey, Judge, we've got everything resolved, so we didn't have any then. But the last time we had a trial, we were able to do a jury trial in the morning, and we had enough time to do a bench trial in the afternoon. I'm going to talk to you a bit more about trials. In the meantime, training, I belong to the Oregon Municipal Judges Association, and they have 2 conferences a year I'm attending, plus they try to do 1 training a month. It's online during the lunchtime, and I'm taking advantage of those. Our clerks belong to the Oregon Association for Court Administration. Jason has been attending the Municipal Judges Association conference last September, and both him and our senior clerk attended the they call it OWACA, Oregon Association for Court Administration. They had an ODOT conference in May, so they done that. The FBI offered to come and talk, and we took advantage of that, and they sent a whole team down here at the end of last year and talked to us about sovereign citizens. Those are the folks that claim that they're not bound by the laws of states. And actually, we had a number of folks from different municipal courts come and view that. Because we hadn't done a jury trial in so long, Jason and Susanna, our senior clerk, go to Albany to watch them go through the jury selection process and see how they did it. So we looked good when we did have one. And then we had a gentleman come in and talk to us about how to recognize seizures and overdoses. Because we had a young lady out here, we thought she was having a psychotic event or an overdose until she wrote on a piece of paper seizure, and then we're all like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with this? So anyway, we've done that training. Let me talk about where we're going. But before I do that, I'm going to take a drink. I was hoping you guys would like ask questions around so I could take some sips of water from time to time.
We'll have plenty of questions at the end.
All right, I was afraid of that. Where we're going, we want to overcome challenges. We got two major challenges. One is bottlenecks. One of the bottlenecks is our prosecutor. She's doing such a fantastic job. And when people come in, especially, and I'm talking mostly about the criminal stuff, when people come in, they given their charging document, and most of the time she will meet with them and say, hey, by the way, this is my walk-in offer. Most of the time, particularly for the people who have never been in trouble before, it's going to be a deferred agreement. You could call it a DA diversion or something like that, but essentially it's a contract between the city and this person. The person comes in, they stand in front of me, I take their plea, so they've now entered a plea, and then the prosecutor gives them some things to do. And if they do those things within the time that she asks, she'll dismiss the case. It's a win-win for everybody, because what we want to do is we want to encourage good behavior, and that's what that's going to do. But she's stretched. So this is what we're doing. Within our budget right now, we've put out an ad for a law clerk to come in and to essentially assist her. We're still in the process. We've gotten some applications, and I'm not sure where we are in the interview process, but we're hoping to get somebody in by mid-August, and that's going to expand our prosecutors. So the clerk can be doing this while she's talking to somebody else, or vice versa, something like that. So the other bottleneck is the judge. A lot of that has to do with communications. Traditionally, people come to court, they're handed their charging document, they're told to go sit down. Then the judge comes out and does you have the right to all of this other stuff. Then the judge will call them up one at a time. What is it you want to do? And some people might want to accept an offer, or they might want to talk to the prosecutor some more, or they might want a lawyer. And in that case, then they're told to collect a financial review packet. And then they have given another court date to show up with their financial review packet. And their financial review packet is reviewed, and it's accepted or not, then they're told to come back another court date. So that's 3 court dates for somebody who wants to have a lawyer. Some people might want to plead and be sentenced right then and there. Hopefully that can happen. Somebody just needs to, but if they want to do that and they come up, oh, well, you need to do a plea petition. So we got to send them back out to get the plea petition. Then they come in and they do it, and then eventually do the sentencing. So we're trying to expand my exposure. So one of the things we got going is we printed up the rights that everyone gets that the judge is supposed to say. We're going to have them printed on sandwich boards, and we're going to put them out in the hallway. So while people are standing in line, they can look over at the sandwich boards and say, oh, yeah, I know, I got my right to have it, you know, that kind of stuff. They see it. The prosecutor is going to give everybody a written offer, and up at the top, and she's already doing this, but it's good to mention it, and it's got all of the rights that they have, and what they would have to, and the ones that they would have to give up if they wanted to accept a plea. On our website, we now have what I think is a really poor actor, but it's me. And I say poor because I sat there where the Councilor Payne was sitting. It's a good spot, and then I'm talking to that camera way back there. And so it looks like one of the old Hercules movies from the 60s that were made in Italy, and then English is dubbed in. So you see the lips moving, and then the sound doesn't quite match up. But I go through all of the admonition of rights in English, and then in Spanish for crimes, and then for traffic tickets. And then our clerks are working on the websites. They're not only they got the videos on there, but also what I say is in writing. And then they also are adding helpful notes for people of things that they can do, talking about their options. The next thing, instead of bringing people in one at a time and asking them what they do, the clerks are asking them. And then they'll put, matter of fact, here's a demonstrative aid. They put a sticky note on the outside of the file that says, this person wants a trial, or this person is entering a plea. It's so, I know, it's such a simple thing, and it has been working so wonderfully. If somebody tells them out there, hey, I want to have a lawyer, okay, here's your financial review packet. And then when they come in, all right, give us back the financial review packet. I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to give you a date that just so happens to coincide with when the lawyer who I would be appointing is going to be here. So we're going to avoid a couple of court appearances after. The other thing, I talked about the deferred agreements. And so, like I said, it's a contract. And if it's a contract, I don't need to have the prosecutor here when she can be out there talking to other people. So if it's going to be a deferred prosecution agreement, I get the file, I got the plea petition in there, and they're including the city's offer, so I know exactly what the terms are. And if it's something where they want to maybe negotiate more or whatnot, then we can wait for the prosecutor to finish up. But if it's something that we don't need her for, just do it. Otherwise, traditionally, I was just sitting back there playing solitaire and working on my emails and doing stuff while I'm waiting for everybody else to catch up so I can do my stuff. So I'm going to change topics for a second, go from crimes to traffic tickets. Statutes allow courts to extend themselves into what's called the Violations Bureau. It's a fancy way of saying the court clerks. And we have it, actually, it says it right on a ticket. These are your options. You can send in your payment, you can go to court and ask for whatever, but we have it on our website. If you want, you can just come up to the window at City Hall throughout the week and talk to a clerk. Or else the days when they show up, because that's what the ticket says they do, I got a bunch of clerks out here that talks to them and gives them their options. If you haven't been in trouble, you can do this. If you've been in trouble for a while, all right, you need to see the judge. But one of the neat things that this city does, that actually I've been bragging about this city doing it to a bunch of other towns, and that is a traffic school. So and we have our rules. You can't have been in trouble for at least a couple of years. And, well, you can't by statute have a commercial driver's license, and you can't be caught with a cell phone. We can't offer them for those. But anything else, you can do this program. It's called U-Turn 180. It's an online class. You can do it in 20 different languages. And what we do is we have people pay a fee that happens to be the equivalent of what the presumptive fine is if they were to just plead guilty. And then we hold that, and then they do the class. If they complete the class costs an extra $50. We'll dismiss the case. We keep the fee, but we dismiss the case. If they don't complete the class, then it stands as a conviction. Really, the difference is when it's a conviction, we have to give $50 of the fee to the state, and then there's this long, complicated formula. The bottom line is I give everybody a choice, and so it's up to them. Quite honestly, one gentleman wrote in, he's 81 years old, he'd never been in trouble before. If he'd been 18, I probably would have offered him the traffic class, but I could tell he wasn't somebody that wasn't going to, so I gave him what we offer, what's called a fix-it ticket. And that's, a fix-it ticket is something like you didn't have insurance, but then you went out and you got your insurance, so you fixed the situation. What we've been doing is we've been taking blocks of time, and we sat down and looked at them and said, okay, we can take this block and we can put it over here, and we can put this block over here. Why? So we can have more time to go to jail. And that's been working out really well, because what we traditionally would do would be arraignments would be at 1:30, and then we would have review hearings at 3, and we would just continue on from there. Going to jail at 3 o'clock, we moved we tried moving the review hearings to 4. Review hearing is me acting as probation officer, and we've ended up staying until 7 o'clock a number of nights. Matter of fact, when we're done by 6, it's considered a short day. Moving arraignments to the morning, moving some of these substantive times to the morning has helped a lot. But time is something I wanted to show you. I left up there a chart. Now I want you to, I feel like this is my 7th grade science project. I'm the one that did this. So what I did is I looked at cities that are close to us in size, starting by population from the Blue Book. I started with Albany, they're number 11, went down to Woodburn, they're number 22, we're 18. And broke it down between this county seats and non-county seats. There's only 3 county seats up there: Albany, Oregon City, and McMinnville. And then, as you can see, I broke it down whether they do violations and misdemeanors or just violations only. For the ones that do misdemeanors, how many misdemeanor arraignments they do a month. I was kind of surprised when I did that. I've pro-temmed in Albany a bunch of times, and their pace is way lower than ours. A typical court day for them is only 2 hours, and I know because they pay me by the hour, and I try to stretch it out as much as I can, and I've yet to go past 11 there, starting at 8:30. But they do 400 a month. Oregon City does 60 to 80 a month, and we do 120. So we're actually busier than Oregon City, which was kind of surprising for me. It also shows the frequency. Albany has court for the arraignments 2 days a week. Then they do criminal pretrials 2 days a month, and then they take an extra day for trials as they come up. Tigard is, no, they're violations only, and they have court twice a week. Now, if you look to the right, Tigard has 8 full-time and 1 part-time clerks, and I ended up calling them up and verifying, and they said, we have a lot of traffic cams. And that uses quite a bit, I'll tell you. Ask me about traffic cams, because they do them in Albany. It's amazing. Lake Oswego, now that's not a county seat, and so they have court 1 day a week, and they take an extra day for trials. Oregon City, they have court 1.5 days a week, plus they'll take an extra day for trials. They have 3 clerks, and of course we're once a week. And then the rest of the West Lynn, they have 15 cases a month. That's we wouldn't even notice that amount, and the rest are violations only. But I want you to look at that and refer back, because one of my visions is, and our roadblocks is, I want our people to have the best tools that they have available, and one is software. We have a software program called Cassell. I guess we've had it for a long time. In preparation for this talk, I did a Google search because I didn't even know how to spell it, and I looked it up. And the first thing I saw was an advertisement for Cassell as a cemetery management program. And I was like, are you serious? And then I did track them down. I found their website. On their website, they advertise. They are good for the general ledger, utility management, payroll, property tax collection, and community development. They don't even mention court at all. And you can see from the chart, the other major program is Tyler. One thing I noticed that no one larger than us uses Cassell. Tyler, the circuit court, or the Oregon Judicial Department, bought one of the versions of Tyler for their court, but they also have a municipal justice software. And my thing is, where I have Encode down at the bottom, that's actually it's the Tyler product that most everybody uses. They say they create, they're only for courts, and they say they will create reports for state and federal compliance. The folks can use it to process payments for online payments, by text payments, phone payments. They have a calendar function. They even have text reminders for defendants. I don't know what the terminology is, but you got to buy extra for it, I think. But the state did. And it's wonderful, because a lot of folks, they live and breathe with their phones. And if they get a text message, they remember. You know, you think when you make a dentist appointment, how many reminders you get, or from your doctor, but they're planning on you being there. They'll set, and it also is set up to send defendant notices and judgments. I am working here. I pro tem in Albany. I'm the judge in Toledo and the judge in Lincoln City. Albany and Toledo have Tyler. Lincoln City and us have Cassell. And I notice a big difference between the two. And it's not just the attitude of the clerks. I'll tell you, the clerk in Lincoln City, when I went over there, they had some old stuff that they just hadn't updated in years, like the fines, statutory fine payments and things like that. So to be helpful, I typed up a whole bunch of letters to kind of shake the bushes, to remind people, hey, you can come in, you can set up payment plans and stuff. So I probably did a half a dozen letters. I put them in Word format. I emailed them to the clerk, so all she would have to do is cut and paste. And then I started noticing the stuff that we were sent out, that the font was all strange. And I asked her. She said, well, Cassell wouldn't let me do it. I had to retype absolutely everything into Cassell. Part of the reason why I can't give you statistics is because we would have to make those statistics. So I'm giving you anecdotal information, I'm sorry. Where if we had Tyler, we could have done it. Albany and Toledo. Toledo is amazing because they're, and it's totally, I mean, we're number 18. I think Toledo's like number 118. They're not, don't even look at the chart. They're not there. But me and a clerk, we sit in the council chamber and I hold court. And as I'm talking to the person, the clerk is writing it. And then when I finish talking, she says, okay, you can just go upstairs to finance and make your payments. It's that fast. In Albany, which remember, they do 4 times the amount of work that we do, is the judge, a clerk, and another clerk who's there to set up payment plans and take payments. And I think about it, if Albany had Casell, right now they have one more clerk than we have. They have full-time and 1 part-time. We have 3 full-time and 1 part-time. Although I guess we have a temporary full-time, whatever Vanessa is at this point. But if they had Casell like we did, they probably would have to have 12 to 16 clerks. It's just amazing. I understand that Jason had asked for it on the budget, and somebody made the decision not to do it. I get it. I understand. But and I have lawyers like demonstrative aids. But this is kind of like Casell. I can rebuild a deck. I can do it. I can screw it in. I got the screw attachment right here. But it's not as fast as it. It's not as efficient. And it's not saving you money. Eventually, these guys are going to be asking for more clerks to work this. So the next thing I want to talk about is the vision that we have to go in the future. Yes, sir.
Before you pull off of that,
Yes.
how much are we talking about?
I don't know. I'm not the dollar man.
Okay.
I make the judgments.
How much are we talking about, dollar person?
Jennifer, we'll wait for you to.
I can't hear you.
Is your mic on?
Now it's on, sorry. So funding this was actually one of the options on the table for ARPA dollars. And so I've got a summary from like 2 years ago of what the cost would be. So the annual cost of Tyler is around $47,000, and there'd be one-time costs of like 52, 53 to get it implemented and the data converted over,
1,000 or 100?
like 52,000
Total.
for the one-time implementation.
Yeah, data conversion.
Including the 47.
No, that's the
So
one-time
110.
For the first
for
year.
the first year. Yeah,
How much is Casell costing us currently yearly?
it's 7,300. So the delta is $40,000 a year, more or less, plus the one-time costs that we'd need to invest. So it's been on the table. It's something that has been under consideration. It's just, you all are aware of how tight the budget years have been. Yeah.
And what's the annual salary of a court clerk that the Tyler efficiency at a $40,000 delta would, from what the sounds of it, would definitely cover? And I would just remind everybody on the dais that it is a work session, so we can't make any decisions this evening.
Yeah, but it's getting the information and understanding exactly what it translates out to.
Loaded cost for a full-time clerk is just at $90,000.
That's all roll-ups, healthcare, PERS, everything.
Yeah, that includes it. So if our costs are really dependent on what healthcare elections are, and I believe the court clerks are screaming deals in terms of health insurance, but
And how close are we to requiring a second day?
Funny you should ask. Before we go on, if you look at the chart here, there's actually three of those programs, court programs. I did a quick comparison. I guess there's a magazine called G2. I'd never heard of it before. They kind of like Amazon, they do a very helpful comparison. The Tyler Municipal Justice Program, they rate they give 4.6 out of 5 stars. This full court, and you can see Kaiser and Tigard use that. That has a 3.8 out of 5 stars. Cassell gets 0 out of 5 stars. And then they also did a listing of the 41 best court management programs, and Tyler is like number 3. The full court it's down there. It's in the top 10. And then Cassell is way down there, like at 23 or something. So let me go on. To answer your question, I'm going to recommend, and I'll get there and explain it, but ultimately I'm going to ask you for permission to work within the budget to expand court time. Because back to the charter, it says that the court shall be open for transaction of judicial business at times specified by the council. If you would give me permission to at least explore being open for 2 days, and I understand McMinnville Municipal Court has traditionally been open 2 days a week, and I'm not sure when we went to the 1 day, but it's pretty silly. Well, I can't say that, but it's not working good. Regarding the vision, my vision, there's some things that we still need to do. One is written local procedure. That's for consistency. Plus, it allows someone who is filling in to just check an SOP. Again, I'm going back to my military background. I'm used to having SOPs and seeing them. And quite honestly, it allows some defense lawyer someplace to point out when we're doing something wrong. If we're doing something wrong, I want to know. Sadly, the person who will probably be writing these local procedures is this guy right here. So I don't want to stress that part too much, but that is something that I think we need to do. I think we need to have a better online presence. For instance, right now, if you do a search for City of McMinnville Municipal Code, you come up with something that says demo and proof, and it would be nice to have something that's not a demo and a proof. The other thing is I've written a whole bunch of orders in the last year and a half, and again, that's something that, and I've had other folks look at them and go, oh, wait a minute, that's not, you screwed up, pool. It'd be nice to just have that online, and then some enterprising defense lawyer can say, hey, look at, that's wrong, you're not complying. So, I mean, as far as transparency, I think it's an important thing. The court itself, like I said, it's the council is the one that has to specify, and so that's what I'm asking for. We have been victims of our own success. Because those FTA rates have plummeted, we got a lot more people coming to court than we had a year ago. The other thing, and this really stresses me, trials. We would be hard-pressed to give somebody a trial 60 days after the date they've been arrested. And I'll tell you why in a second. For the same reason, we'd be hard-pressed to do a 90-day fast and speedy trial for someone who's in prison. Why? You look at that chart. All those other cities, when they have a trial coming up, they take a day, and they just do it. Us, we we have 1 week is criminal, 1 week traffic, criminal traffic, and then on the 5th Wednesday of the month, we've reserved for trials. There's only 4 5th Wednesdays in a year. So we can only do 4 trial days a year. It could be better. It's caused a backlog. And quite honestly, there's fast and speedy trial problems. If someone is not in custody, but they've had to wait a while, the Oregon Supreme Court says that the length of, a reasonable length of time to wait for your trial is equal to the length of the statute of limitations. On a misdemeanor, that's 2 years. And I think a lot of our trials that are coming up are at the 2-year stage. And quite honestly, if I got a motion from a defense lawyer asking for a dismissal before lack of speedy trial, I'd be hard-pressed not to grant it. But the other thing, just by limiting it to 4 trials a year, we lose witnesses. The city had to dismiss a case a few weeks ago because, actually, there was one witness she couldn't find. I think there was another one who had passed away. How are we serving the community if we're having to dismiss cases and the other thing is that it puts pressure on our prosecutor to give really, really good deals that may not necessarily be deserved just to convince somebody not to go to trial. Again, I think that takes away from the whole idea of us representing the community. I want to establish a mental health court. Right now, having somebody in the courtroom is really helpful, but we should have a dedicated time. And I was thinking about this the other day. Isn't that really an accommodation under the Adults with Disability Act anyway? The thing about a mental health court, it needs to be something that's low-key. I've been trying to do it with one lady who gets really anxious in crowds, but on a one-on-one she does fine. And it'd be nice we need to have low-key, and it has to be frequent, and it has to be consistent. Because we want people to continue with their treatment. We want them to live normal lives. Albany developed a mental health court, and I've been bragging to people about it for years. What they do is they do it frequently, and someone from the county mental health department shows up with a person, and the judge will tell them, look, part of your job is to go to treatment, and you have so many $1,000s of back fines, and I'll tell you what, for every hour that you go through treatment, I'm going to take so much off from your fines. It gives them an incentive. I was filling in for him in Albany a couple of months ago, and a former client of mine, who I knew had schizophrenia, who I knew self-medicated with methamphetamine, who had been in the system for years, and hers would be, she gets arrested, she goes through the aid and assist, she goes to the state hospital, she comes out, she gets back on meth. She went through that, and she had gone through over a year in Albany's mental health court, and she showed up, she was well-dressed, she was better dressed than I was, well-spoken, intelligent, all because she had gotten off of meth, because she went through the treatment, and she continued with her mental health stuff. A tremendous success, and we can do that here. The other thing I'd like to do eventually is to establish a veterans court. Judges are actually required, when they tell people you have the right to have a trial, you have a right to remain silent. If you're a veteran, you could be eligible for specialty courts or special treatment. And if you have any questions, contact a lawyer, because we don't have one. We have a strong veterans community here. We got a great American Legion. I love to go there. Again, shouldn't it be, that's an accommodation for someone who has served our country and they might be dealing with PTSD or something like that. That's something that we can do. And these are things that we can do within our budget. It's time. It's holding me back. We want to continue with the probation reviews. There has been, and I've talked about them, there's success and failures. I had one gentleman who, I woke him up. To me, he seemed like a drunk. I don't know how else to explain it. He didn't seem to care. And we had just started the work crew, and I said, okay, you got 20 days. I'm going to give you 20 days. If you don't do them by this date, you're going to go to jail. So on the date he was supposed to come, he realized, oh my gosh, I didn't bring my report from the probation department. Well, he didn't know that. He actually emailed them to us. So he ran from here over to the probation department on 6th Street, got his report, brought it back. He was so proud. And he wasn't using alcohol anymore. And we actually, last time he came in, we asked him to come back, not because we wanted to make sure that he was doing his stuff, it's just we loved hearing about his success. One lady who I revoked her probation and I gave her 5 days in jail for a DUI, which is a bit much. But when she came back 3 months later, she brought the director of Provoking Hope with her to substantiate the fact that she was working with them. She was involved with treatment with Lynn County Behavioral Health. And I barely recognized her, and she said, you know what? You saved my life when you put me in jail for 5 days. So these are really great things, and I want to continue that. And that's something that McMinnville Municipal Court has just been doing for years. But what I suggest regarding the time, like I said, the budget process is already over, so I'm thinking of the 24-25 budget. However, these guys can work it out. But I think we ought to talk about having court 2 days a week. In a combination of that and that Tyler, I look at the Albany people that they have a court day, which is only 2 hours, compared to our 8 to 12, it's quite a bit. So, in summary, and I know you're happy to hear me say summary, our community court is working like a team between the court staff, our prosecutor, our audio-visual person who was here earlier, Megan, the police, defense lawyers, people in mental health, Provoking Hope, the county mental work crew folks, the finance department, city manager, and the citizens committee that were kind enough to come in today and give me support. And oh yeah, there's a judge in there somewhere, I suppose. We want to continue our exploring new ideas. We want to continue trying to figure out new ways of dealing with our challenges. We want to continue to advocate for decent tools for our people to use. At least I'm going to do it. And we want to continue with greater flexibility. And I want to encourage positive law abiding behavior. And we want to hold offenders and ourselves responsible. That's it. That's all I got. Any other questions?
I'll start with Sal down on the dais.
Well, Judge Poole, thank you so much for the time you spent. Really appreciate everything you're telling us about changes to time management in the court, doing more with basically the same resources, so I'm really appreciative of that. My question is, you had some requests for an expansion of service. You're pushing that into 24, 25. But when you mentioned it, you said we could do this within the budget. But my sense is what you're actually saying is we need to increase the budget or modify the budget for 24, 25 to go to 2 days. I guess my question is, do you think that's possible, or maybe this is better for Jason? Is that something that's possible if we were to go to the Tyler software, which is more efficient, with the same staffing levels, could you go to 2 days?
Well, let me jump in part, because I don't think you need to have the full meal deal like we got right now, because right now, every clerk, all 4 clerks over from City Hall, so nobody's being a receptionist over there anymore, and they're working. And what I see, for instance, in Albany, it's me and 2 clerks, one to process and one to do the recording. And that's it. And then the other clerks can stay over there and continue on their work. So I think there's a cost of service there. The other thing is we don't necessarily have, on the specialty court, we might not need to have as many people here. We might not need to have a bailiff. We might not need to have, we can work things around a lot more. We just want to be, we want to be efficient and we want to be effective at the same time. So as far as the cost, I'm not sure.
But it's something you could work.
Yeah, I think it's something that we can work with. And when I say, I can do a mental health court with the budget that I got right now, if I had the time, I sure could do it right now. But because we just need me, maybe the prosecutor. What we like to do is when people are doing good things, we like to have somebody go, woo-hoo! I can't do it because so I usually say, well, you get a woo, maybe a who. But we want, 1 or 2 people here. But we don't need all 4 clerks here for that.
Well, are they going to be working somewhere else,
Well, they'd be working in City Hall.
doing court work?
Yes.
If I can interject on that for
Yeah.
just a second. The staff that we have that are municipal court staff serve as City Hall reception as well. So in a normal day, we have people coming in that are not doing court business. We have phone calls that are coming to City Hall that is not court business. So we are doing duties that take away from our normal tasks in a day. To Mr. Peralta's question about staffing-wise, now, because of the staff levels that we have now and the tasks that we have myself, the court supervisor, and the senior court clerk doing tasks that are typically done by clerk ones to get all of our work done. So Tyler would increase efficiency that would allow clerks to do the job that they're paid to do, and then that would free up your court clerk and myself to do tasks that are back into the stuff like our collection, all the debt that's owed to the work that we're not following up on as regularly as we. There's things that case management, the people who are on probation, the people who are on DUI deferrals, things that we could follow up on a lot more efficiently if we had certain capability.
Thanks.
Additional questions, Councilor Peralta?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. The second question relates to behavioral health and mental health. Do you feel like you have the resources in place to send people who need help someplace where they can get it? Meaning, you have a person who's a long-term behavioral health challenge, can't aid and assist in their own defense. You've seen them in the community for months or years. What else do we need to do as a community, if anything, to help provide service for that, for folks in that situation?
Yeah, you went from a general to a specific question.
I know I did, I'm sorry. But I think you get the
And
gist.
quite honestly, and that's why relationships are so important, because we've developed a relationship with the county mental health department. Without them, the answer would be no, we don't have the resources. With them, the answer is yes, we do have resources. But even with that specific person that I was talking about, that's a stretch, because that person is only ever, as far as us, the most serious charge was a disorderly conduct, which is not something that you like, but that's not something that would trigger an aid and assist unless it's being violent, or not an aid and assist, an involuntary mental commitment, or being able to send them to the hospital for an aid and assist. The only thing I can do is when the police arrest that particular person, I can hold him for 60 days before I have to release him, or else give him a trial. If we do give him a trial, a lot of those 37 cases for that person will have a maximum penalty of 30 days in jail.
So what kind of services, if any, will they get in jail if they're held in county jail? That's one question. Then I have one question. Thanks for the
Yeah,
indulgence
and
here.
it needs to be voluntary. They can't make people do anything unless they've been involuntarily committed. And then they can give them medication, which most of the time is a big, huge step. It's not like the old days where they give them stuff that turns them into zombies. It's not anything like that at all that I see nowadays. Now it's the medication that they should have been taking for bipolar or for schizophrenia or something like that. I think really that's it within the jail, meeting with people, but it's not like they're, they get a group session or something like that, or maybe they do, I'm not.
Well, if you want to talk about your offer that you give for a day of treatment for a day off, I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest carrot that we can offer.
Yeah, yeah. What he's talking about is the bench parole thing that
Yeah.
I offered, and what I have on that is I'll give people a day off their sentence for every day that they've involved themselves with services with mental health.
Thanks. I just have one more question, just a little bit of a change of direction, but Grants Pass and Redmond don't have a city court.
Yep, they do.
What do they do? What does public safety look like in those communities, and how does it?
So that was a good question, because I called and asked. And Grants Pass, for one thing, it's not a county seat, and I think that's a really big thing. Plus, as I recall, they're really close to the county seat, which is Medford. So, what they told me is that they contract with the sheriff to provide all of their law enforcement, and then their people are cited to go to Medford. It's the same in Redford. I said Redford. Redmond. Talk to them, and they contract with Deschutes County, and then people are cited to go to Bend.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Counselor Mickey?
So if I'm understanding you correctly, basically, you want to have the opportunity, the flexibility of having an extra day of court. You're willing to work within your budget, but you'd really, really like the software package. Is that basically what you're telling us?
Yes. Understand, I don't use the software.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
But if it will make the other people
But
work
I-
more efficiently, then it's
Yes.
worth its weight in gold, yes.
Yeah, when I look at what other folks are doing in other courts, and I see how efficient they are and how inefficient our folks are, and then hearing the complaints from our folks are having to deal with mounds of paperwork, that's what it is. But no, for me, I sit up there, I wear that robe, and I make great decisions, and I scowl at people. So they won't let me near a keyboard, yeah, for good reason.
Okay, I just wanted to know specifically what you really
Yeah,
want.
Yeah.
And
So,
you-
I mean, I'm not asking for anything. Overall, this is my report to you of what's been going on for the last year.
Yeah, but
And it's,
you've had a year now, and it's
Yeah.
time to tell us what you think.
There's some inefficiencies, and it's my job to tell you what they are. And I'm still astounded at the lack of time that we have available for our court and for trials. And I think the lack of time is led to the lack of seriousness that we've encountered. We're getting away from it, but it's still there.
I think that's all I've got.
Counselor Payne?
Do you really want to do this? You might want to take a drink of water.
I'll do it.
Okay. Do you want to go first? Okay. So, some of this is curiosity and some of it is probably relative in some capacity or another. So I'm curious if, right now, just as of today, you expect any more jury trials?
Yeah, we have them planned for, how many?
11.
We have 11.
Okay. For just this calendar year? Or just like,
What we got total.
you've got to hold them within a,
Well, yeah, we have 11 people that want a trial that are not being given one right now.
okay. And those have to be held within how many days? Did you say 60 or 90? Something
If
like
they're
that?
in custody, then it has to be held within 60 days, but I'm not aware of any of those. If it's somebody who is out of custody, then the rule of thumb is they need to have a trial within 2 years.
Okay. So, yeah, okay. And then I'm curious, and Jason may have more of the statistical data, is how many bench warrants are out right now?
It's actually gone down. I used to spend almost an hour at the end of court signing bench warrants.
How?
And I would say I'm spending probably 15 minutes now at this point.
And is it more like no-shows or non-compliance on contracts or agreements?
No, we don't, we're not even allowed to do that on non-compliance by statute anymore.
Okay.
So it's strictly for failure to appear.
So what's the resolution on a non-compliance?
And that's a really good question. No, the legislature passed a statute that says we can't suspend people's driver's licenses for non-compliance. Ultimately, non-compliance on payment, so let's say it's a deferred sentence, that person has agreed to pay so much. If they haven't paid it by the expiration of that time, usually the time period is a year, then it turns into a conviction. That's one state. If it's a probation, and on the probation, they're supposed to pay so much in fines by the end of the probation period, the city prosecutor can file a probation violation, and that person has to come in and do some explaining. Ultimately, you can't take blood out of a stone. And some folks don't, the legislature's changed everything as far as fines. It used to be, this is the amount of fine that you have to have. Then they've lowered it. And then recently they passed a statute that gives the judges the authority to find to reduce a person's fine down to minimal or nothing at all. And we are required when we're sentencing somebody to find out if they're even capable of paying a fine.
Okay.
And then ultimately, if they're done with probation, we don't have control over them any longer, we have to turn them over to collections.
And that's Jason?
Yeah, Jason does it.
And that's one of the things that's being struggled to maintain right now.
Well, we outsource that work to Western Collection Agency, so we have a contract with them, but that is them working the case. That's not us working the case.
Gotcha.
So-
It's a third party.
It's a third.
Okay.
And to answer your question about the bench warrants, we have filing cabinets full of bench warrants that are so old that some of the defendants are deceased, out of the area, out of the state, some of the officers are no longer with the Mac PD. Some of the officers are deceased. We're going through a project with Mac PD, with the leadership there and the city prosecutor, to try to update those files and see which warrants are even enforceable anymore. So to give you a number on that, I don't have.
Okay. Well, that information was helpful, so thank you. How many lawyers are there in the court-appointed representation program?
Basically, we're using about 3 at this point.
And that's sufficient?
Yeah.
We have the Lawrence Law Firm, we have Kiana Parvis, and we have Ted Corin out of Salem. So 5.
I haven't been appointing Ted for
True.
a
4.
while.
Yep.
So, Nick Parvis.
Miss Nix.
Yeah, and occasionally, so, yeah, 3 or 4.
And is there a barrier, or is it functional at this point for court participants to receive timely assessments for alcohol and drug treatment?
There is a lady, her name is Deanna Jago, wonderful person. She does all of the assessments for us, all the assessments for Newburgh, and I want to say she was doing all of them for Circuit Court as well. Because she was the only person doing it, she's become overwhelmed. And we're really finding that it's like a 2 or 3 month process between when we tell them to get an assessment to when we find out that she's actually seen the folks
Okay.
that want to be seen.
Sure. Thank you for that. Okay. And last question is, are you having any hearings for impounded vehicles?
Yeah, we did one a couple of weeks ago. Sadly, the officer became violently ill the night before, and he sent us an email, and we had nothing. I had 3 officers in this courtroom that day, and I turned to I asked all 3 of them, well, do you have his report? Can you tell me about his report? They went, no, nobody does a report. And then I got a call from Captain Fessler. It turns out this officer had written an excellent report, had bent over backwards, had dotted all of his I's, crossed all of his T's, but nobody had his report. And so after talking to Captain Fessler, we worked out a program, essentially, where if somebody gets sick, somebody can stand in and do that on the program. So, yeah, we had the one.
I'm glad, I mean, I'm sorry that it happened, but I'm glad that it did, so that there was an opportunity to create a prevention for the future. So in this case, or maybe in prior cases even, are any of these vehicles impounds that go to the houseless population lot that we have? Like the RVs and the bike trailers and whatnot?
I don't get involved in that.
Okay.
That's the police that do that. I know in this particular instance, it was, there's a state statute that actually covers it, and that's the reason why we had to still have the hearing even though the officer was ill, because once a person makes that request, we have a limited time, less than 10 days, I want to say 7, to give that person a hearing, and a lot of statutes say it can be extended for good cause. This one doesn't. So it sounds like you got it. We had to have it for sure. Sure.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Thank you, Council President. First, I want to say thank you so much for all you're doing. What comes through to me as I listen to you, I really believe in both the carrot and the stick. And what I hear in what you present to us is you also believe in using both the carrot and the stick. I believe if you don't have one, whichever one it is, you're going to have lots of problems.
I agree. Thank you for recognizing that.
I appreciate that. I also appreciate your sense of humor as as being similar to mine, and I get a kick out of it as it comes forward. When I was listening to this discussion about a second day, the one thing that I'm pull out that's slightly different than what you've said is I'm going to assume that we would have an increase in cost, and predominantly that's going to be for you. Am I?
Yeah, if we can do it within our budget, that's fine. But, you know, you've already gone through your budgetary process for 2020.
My preference, we're not going to make a decision today. I wish we already had 2 days. So I'm already, if I could make this happen with a magic wand, I would do that. I think we need to be at 2 days. I think you need the software you're asking for. You know, justice delayed is justice denied. And we're there, and I don't like hearing that we're there. Those are my comments. One of the questions I do have is, you said early on something about we're not fining or we're not enforcing those who do not show up.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate what you meant by that? And there's two parts to that elaboration I want. What do you mean by that in terms of what are we not doing? And then who's the we? Who made the decision that we're not doing this?
Okay, the we is that poor, stressed prosecutor.
Okay.
It's a crime. The crime is called failure to appear on a criminal citation. And then once you have court, then it's failure to appear in the second degree. And if you're charged with a felony, then it's failure to appear in the first degree, which can lead to a prison sentence. When I first started doing felonies, one of the first people that I represented was someone who was going to prison, this is back in the old days, for a failure to appear and on a 5-year sentence. And he said it all started at municipal court with him just not showing up. Now, looking back, I think he was giving me a line, but I think he did some other stuff. But it's a judgment call, and I think the judgment call is we would double our work if we were charging people with failure to appear.
My concern is we're letting the stick drop. And I don't want to micromanage, but I just want to voice that concern, and that's why I want to know who made the decision.
Yeah.
So I think those are the comments, and I want to add I love the stories of turned lives, because really that's the goal here, right, is to end the process of the turnstile. So
I absolutely agree, and quite honestly, at this point with the secret code that we put on the warrants and using the big, I want to say the big ass stamp, but I'm not sure I can in this situation, but the big stamp with the red stuff on it, I think that's going to have a big an impact. And the fact that people now, when they get a warrant, they end up in jail until they deal with it instead of, you know, you said one of the adages of justice delayed is justice denied. On the defense and defendant side, it's justice delayed is justice served. So, and that's what the battle is between, you know, and the judge has to deal with that. But, you know, I see people coming in here asking for trials, knowing darn well that they're just delaying things.
yeah, we need to get that rectified.
Yeah. I did 2 traffic trials on driving while suspended. What is there to decide? You either had a license or you didn't have a license, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you for all that you're doing.
Sure.
I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Judge. I have a multitude of questions, but I'll promise we'll still be out of here by 8.
Okay, good.
You mentioned work crew and how Yamaha County Sheriff's Office had contracted with Newburgh, or Newburgh had contracted with them. Does the city of McMinnville and the McMinnville Court currently have an agreement with work crew, or what's the hurdles for that?
I don't have a budget, so I can't contract with them. They will do the work and as soon as I found out that they're doing this, I got a hold of Jeff and said, hey, by the way, this might be something our Parks Department might want to do or something like that. And but they have their own, like I said, it's a contract, what they explained, and I think they charge the equivalent of minimum wage, and so if you can afford it, it's great. But for me, it's wonderful. It's not costing us anything, and I'm sending people to put in a good hard day's worth of work, and they're being supervised, and it's wonderful. And they talked about they had women that had been sentenced to the work crew who had been the victims of domestic violence, and they didn't want to be in a situation, and they've made accommodations for them. And so they don't have to be out there in the woods with a gang of sexual predators or whatnot. They're working their things, and it's just wonderful. It's been such a, because before we were able to give people community service, working for your brother-in-law Al, or else jail. And this is something that's completely, it's in the middle, and so it's been great.
So just to clarify, the hurdle to us having work crew as an option is we don't have a current budget set aside or a department that's on board with you to.
What would be
work crew.
great if I had that magic wand is if the city had its own work crew program where I could send people to do work crew for the city of McMinnville. That would be wonderful. But to do that, it's going to require an officer and to monitor these folks at all times. And that's too much. But if I had a magic wand, that's what I would ask for.
Okay. You mentioned sandwich boards out in the lobby to help speed up the process of intake and people determining how they want to plea. Will those be in Spanish? And do we also have a translator on staff for court?
Yeah, we do have a translator on staff. And both Jason and Freddie Vargas, Freddie is usually out there. He's the one who translated my speech. He became a U.S. citizen early this year, at the end of last year. Extremely proud. But you know what? I hadn't thought of it, and that's why I want to be transparent and whatnot. We wrote up the rights to go on a sandwich board, or did you already think of it and you didn't tell me?
No.
Okay, but it's a good idea, is the bottom line.
Yeah, I just think from the demographic of our city, it would be advantageous for us to have that from an access standpoint.
And we have a designated hearing that is for speakers, so we'll have those out. It's a great idea to have those out during that one session that we have Spanish speakers with our interpreter, because we do have a interpreter that comes once a month on that hearing date to process those cases.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned to ask about traffic cams, so I'm asking about traffic cams.
I had forgotten about that. Thank you. So I guess there's a company who the cities contract with for running the traffic cams. And the first time I dealt with it in Albany, a lady came in and says, oh, yeah, I stopped for that red light. Absolutely. And I'm like, okay, well, then you want to have a trial, so we'll have to set a different rate, a different day. And the clerk went, no, we can do that right now. We can watch it on that video. And so she hit a button, and the video of this lady's traffic cam, and sure enough, she drives up to the red light and just makes a right turn, never stops at all. And what I'm finding, and I've pointed this out to defendants, is I've had so many people up here in Albany when I'm filling in who swear up and down that they stopped for that red light before they made their right-hand turn. And you see on the video that they didn't do it. They just didn't do that at all. Albany has found that they're making a lot of money doing it. They bent over backwards to make sure that they put it on a corner, at an intersection that was solely within the city, only city roads. And it's been really good. And the number of people that don't stop for red lights or try to slip through is just, it's absolutely amazing. So anyway, that's all I really had to say about the traffic lights. Although it looks like Tigard is making, I suspect they're making money hand over fist if they have to have 8 full-time clerks and 1 part-time to handle their traffic cams.
So follow-up questions for that would be, from my understanding, the traffic cam companies are who make the majority of the money in the cities they operate in, get a small cut, similar to
I'll bet you
advertising
that's
companies
exactly how it works.
with school fundraising. So would be interested in how that breaks down. And then second would be, and the most important point for me is, does it actually reduce crashes? Does it actually make that intersection safer? Is there less pedestrian to automotive accidents that happen at that intersection? And if there's not, and it's just a revenue generator, then I have a hard time getting over that finish line and enacting those in this city.
And you're asking the wrong person for those answers. I can't tell you.
Okay. Moving on, we talked about Tyler and software, and the one-time transfer / onboarding cost is one thing, and I think that's something that kind of fits our what we've done with ARPA dollars historically in the city. But that ongoing cost, my question to you and Jason and Jennifer is, would that ongoing cost be cost neutral overall because of the efficiencies it creates, and how much more you could focus on collections, or how much more you could ramp up the throughput of the court system? And so it's more looked at like an overhire at the fire department when we did that with FTEs, so we weren't paying as much overtime and things like that. That's what I would be looking for if you guys wanted to present that to council or get it back on the agenda, is, A, what's the current cost of it, because our info is 2+ years old probably on cost, and then B, is it cost neutral ongoing, or what is the actual deficit it puts on the budget?
And so there's capabilities with the software that would alleviate other costs that are unforeseen. Typically, when you think about it, we handwrite every single document that comes out of court. We have Print Northwest. We order 2,000 forms at a time for judgments, for reset notices, for things that come out of court. That Castell is a data entry, Tyler is a data entry that you would enter that data and print it out on a sheet and send the person with a copy of their judgment, and they're able to start their payment plan that day, versus a form for the payment plan, a form for, so it's the office costs would be reduced greatly due to being able to have the capabilities of a new system.
So when you guys present that, the Castell at $7,300, that's not counting the Print Northwest bill of whatever that is every month for those?
Correct, and then just the labor and manpower of somebody. Judge just told people today to start writing basically social security numbers on every form, because the case numbers are 10 digits long. And so yeah, it's a matter of speediness of the hearing, because literally judge has a folder full of forms. If we're doing a driver safety course that he has to fill out and sign in real time, versus having something that would just be printed out in electronic signature. Judge would have a laptop or a tablet with an electronic signature that could be added to the judgment. And so,
And all those forms just auto-populate through that?
yeah, you're talking about time, you're talking about resources, you're talking about materials that cost would be alleviated.
Okay.
Yeah, let me jump in, because he's absolutely right. Whenever I do a judgment, I'm up there sitting right where you are, Councilor Garvin, writing out the judgment, and I did complain about, because the computerized citations, I don't know where they come up with these numbers. It's as long as like an American Express account number. It's ridiculous, and you got to put it, handwrite it all out. And the other ones, and I compare that to when I fill in Albany, I don't do any of that. The only thing I do is there's going to be a citation, and I sign my name at the bottom of the citation. That's all I do there.
The more I think about this also, is we have myself on the dais, judge, we have our senior clerk sitting at the end, we have two clerks at the front, we have a bailiff, and every person in this courtroom touches that judgment. It goes from me taking it, giving it to to Rob Harmon. Rob brings it to Susanna, who sits with the defendant and fills out the rest of it with them. Then Susanna takes that judgment and takes it to the front staff, who is going to do the reset notice when they have to come back, their payment plan, and everything else that needs to go into the financial part of it, versus Judge's other experience where it gets signed by him and goes straight to the finance department, where someone is going up there to make their payments and set up their payment plan in real time.
Okay. I don't recall why it didn't make the final ARPA list. Do you have any historical knowledge on that, Jennifer? Was it the ongoing costs that shied us away from that, or?
I don't know that I recall any specific discussion of it. There just were a lot of great projects, and not everything got greenlit. And I think one of the things that we did do to support the there were two things that were done to support municipal court with ARPA funding, and one was the remodel that we did in that area where people walk in the city hall, and then secondarily was to increase staff time for a finite period to be able to deal with backlog and that kind of thing. So we're still, part of what I think the recent challenge that court has faced is there just have been a series over the last 2 years of personnel turnover or health conditions and extended leaves, and just it's been one thing after the other. And so the amount of time, sustained time where all the clerks and the judge have been available has really been, I would hazard a guess, maybe 3 months out of a year, perhaps even 18 months. It's been that difficult in terms of the staffing piece. So getting caught back up, there continue to be challenges, even though we've got the extra dollars still supporting it. So my sense is, because there was this support for a couple of the municipal court asks, and they were smaller dollar asks as well, I think that was part of the thinking, I would imagine.
Okay. On the subject of backlogs, Jason, you mentioned 11 jury trials that you currently know about. Of those 11, how many do you think or know are in that 18 to 24 month window?
Yeah, we're up against 2 years on most of them.
Okay.
And I would say, to add to your other question, your previous question, that there was a less convincing argument. Nobody brought an antique drill and a Milwaukee wrench to it.
And then DUI assessments, you mentioned that we're using one outfit, and they're also servicing pretty much everybody else in the county as well. Has there been a reason why we haven't, or that we can't statutorily engage with other assessment providers to expedite that process?
We could, and I think, isn't Yamhill County Behavioral Health now starting?
I believe that they are expanding services there also.
Yeah, but at one time, she was the only one. I mean, literally the only one in town and in the county.
Okay.
So,
Fair enough. And then you've mentioned expanding court to 2 days a week multiple times, which initially, from my understanding, the biggest pro of that is that you don't have to release people premature, but you mentioned you've deputized Jason and Susanna and some other officers at the PD, so that kind of alleviates that added benefit, I guess. So what would be the ideal scenario of going to 2 days a week, and what's it going to do as far as service level to the citizens?
Having a mental health court, having a veterans court, and being able to take time to actually talk to folks and to be able to do trials on a timely basis. As far as the people in jail, I think we have that sort of covered now, basically 1 hour a week, because folks, it's holding somebody in jail, it just has such an impact across the board for recidivism or just to let them know that there's a stick. And we've had tremendous success with that. So I don't think we need an extra day for the in custody folks. It would be nice, but to be able to do the other stuff that we really want to do.
Okay.
Extra days does he need?
So do you need an extra day a week, or you just need like an extra day a month for trial, or?
Trials should just come up. We ought to be able to, okay, somebody wants to have a trial, in the vast majority of time, we're talking about when lawyers are involved. Okay, so let's look at when we can do it and not have to just limit it on a Wednesday. Why not put a trial on Friday or a Monday or whatever, we're within people's schedules. But as it is right now, we have to give people there's a potential we can give you a trial, and Jason's the one who holds the calendar. That's the other crazy thing. We have a paper calendar.
Does Tyler allow for a digital calendar?
Oh, yeah.
One thing too.
Tyler's products are all Microsoft Windows, so it's basically like playing with Outlook.
One thing that I would be also, I think we need to consider is the police department is tremendously short-staffed. Once they finally get fully staffed, that's going to be more caseload coming this way. If they're already overwhelmed, and we get the other 6 to 8 police officers online that we're needing, they're definitely going to need that second day.
So I think I want to paraphrase Councilor Menke and President Garvin's question is, do you need 2 full days per week for hearings, not trials, but hearings?
And I'm sorry,
Or can
I got to bounce off. I'm talking about 2 days a week.
So I guess maybe on the kind of could you do one day a week for 1 week and then 2 days the next week, or, add, am I asking your question?
I just, basically you want 2 days a week, that's doubling your time. So that's doubling at least your personal budget for your payroll.
My personal budget.
Well, no, it's doubling whatever you're
Yeah,
paying.
basically, you're already paying me right now for 2 days a week. And I am pretty much, we worked it out, and I'm over the last year, I've put in, I'm averaging 10 hours a week.
Yeah, you're doing long days,
Right.
so.
No, I mean, working outside of the
outside,
court and whatnot.
okay.
So, and I'm not talking about that at all. You could put court 2 days a week.
Okay, so we're saying then, so you've got an extra 2 hours each week. If you're working around 10 a week, I assume it's an 8-hour day. So then we'd need to add in at least another 6 hours per week.
No, we're paying him 2 days.
They're asking for your salary.
We are paying you for 2 days already?
Right now, yeah, you are.
Oh, well,
Don't ask for money back, you won't give.
okay, well, that should have been made a lot clearer, okay. All right, so no wonder you could work within your budget, you just need the time.
I mean, if I'm hearing him right, he's just he's asking us if he can expand service.
Yeah,
At
it works for
essentially the same
me.
Budget level.
Can't make
So,
Yeah, we can't make the
You can't
decision,
make
but
the
it makes a lot of
things here.
sense.
And understand, it's an ongoing process. So we're not going to go from one day to, boom, 2 days a week, we're full. You know, we would, within the budget, we're going to be expanding, you know, baby steps essentially. But it would be nice, you know, because, just to, if nothing else, we could start with doing, adding one extra day of criminal cases a month or something like that.
Yeah.
Or being able to put in trials when we need to have trials instead of 4 times a year is just, and, but my big passion right now is for those poor folks who need help in mental health, to give them consistent times to meet with folks. And at the same time, you have the folks that are dealing with substance abuse, and that, we're talking about the DUI probation violations. I mean, not probation violations, where I'm acting as a probation officer. Right now, we have to set them out at 3 or 4 months or 6 months out. If we could do those more often, it would be a quicker thing, because, oh, okay, you haven't done this. Well, then let's do this now. You know, right now, I have to give people I have to interrogate them. Well, why haven't you done this? Well, I've been busy. Well, why are you busy? Well, I'm working full time. Well, that's funny, so am I. You know, being able to see people more often. And right now, we're at the very bottom. I mean, we're doing skeleton and working crisis management only. So it's, if I, that's what I'm talking about. I want to get out of the crisis management mode and actually get into, this is what court needs to be like.
Understood. The time's now 7:51. I'll go down the dais for closing comments. Anything, Councilor Payne, Councilor Chenoweth?
I actually have 2 quick questions that I'll throw out. First is, in terms of, I've heard Councilor Garvin make comments about collections, and you made comment about collections. And the gist I got out of that is you're the collection agency. Are we using a collection agency right now? Okay, that'd be number one. Number two, I remember several months ago on that topic, there was a discussion that we had a lot of money out there to be collected. Where are we at with that?
Things have been changing in a positive way. Western Collection is doing a great job, and our numbers are steadily increasing on what's being collected. My emphasis on collection is what we call pre-collection. So identifying the candidates who we're going to send to collection is not happening as regularly as it needs to be because of just the amount of tasks that we have with our 4 staff members.
The legislature changed the statutes a while ago where they made it so if a person who, when a person doesn't show up, one of the tools that we have is to suspend their license. Sometimes it gets their attention. But the legislature also said that if a person who has been suspended because they didn't go to court, if they contact that court and they make a payment and they set up a payment plan, then the court's required to tell DMV, okay, you can reestablish this person's license. Word has gotten out, people know that now, and more people are contacting us, and some of those people are in collections, and they have to deal with them as well.
Do you anticipating shifting to Tyler would make that more efficient and result in better collections?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that would be a gain income-wise that we can anticipate switching to Tyler. Okay, that's, I was leading all the way to there. Sorry, it took me so many questions to get there. Thank you. Lastly, just a comment. I have taken, what is it, U-Turn 180, is that the name of it? I've taken that course. Have you required this by chance of all your staff?
No, I've taken it.
I think you really ought to.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic course.
It is.
It didn't change my behavior at all, but it was a wonderful course. And I think it would be very, very well
Yes.
represented if each one of our staff have taken it so that they understand what they're offering.
Yes. No, I've taken it. I've taken the test. I passed the test. I still got 3 wrong. I blame it on fat fingers, but, you know, that's a story, and I'm sticking with it.
Councilor Peralta?
Yeah, I really appreciate this. I think we should expand the service level, and I think whether it's in this budget cycle or the next budget cycle, work towards shifting to the new software package to facilitate their work.
Thank you, Councilor McKee.
I basically would agree with everything that Mr. Peralta has said here, Counselor, and I appreciate the information. It could have been just a tad bit clearer on the numbers to begin with. It would have been really helpful. But beyond that, yeah, I can see that there's some definite room there for some good software and some working towards 2 days. Just out of curiosity, is there any issues with the room itself, having 2 days a week? Scheduling, yeah.
Is there a regular meeting over here, what, Tuesday there is? No. So I believe McMinnville used to offer Friday as a court day for trials, so Friday would be available.
Oh, Friday's the only possibility? Is that what you're saying?
Monday, I think.
Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
I can't understand you. What are you saying? Maybe Monday.
Judge, thanks for coming out tonight. Really appreciate all the information. From what I've taken away from the dais here tonight is there's definitely an appetite to explore if it could be cost neutral to bring Tyler on, if we found a way to fund that transitional or onboarding dollar amount through ARPA or some other funding sources. It seems pretty unanimous up here on the dais. The 2-day-a-week thing, I think your time frame of being more on next fiscal year, unless you guys could present something that shows it could work within the current budget. As you know, we've already adopted the budget, so outside of that, I just want to say thanks for all the information. There's definitely, I think if community members are watching, you've clarified some things, and if anybody's watching and something isn't been clarified, his contact information's on the city website. So,
Thank you, that's really helpful.
and
I do want to say, and the council had brought up about me giving a report once a year. I think it's really valuable for both ways, for the court to know what the council's thinking and for us to just let you know what's going on. So I think if we should do this every year.
Definitely. And Jennifer and Jason, once you have numbers together, I'd love to work with you and the mayor on getting that on the agenda for council to chew on and have you guys present to us on the Tyler software. With that, I'll adjourn our work session at 7:57 p.m.